war in Ukraine has entered a deadly new phase, and what once seemed like safety is now a death trap. Today, we reveal how the Ukrainian Azov Brigade turned heavily fortified Russian trenches into chaos and destruction, showing that modern warfare has completely rewritten the rules of battle.
Чітко, брат.
The confrontation began quietly, almost imperceptibly. Russian troops had spent weeks carving defensive trenches across open fields and forests, believing these earthworks would shield them from Ukrainian assaults. Zigzagging pathways, connecting tunnels and dugouts were intended to offer safety from artillery, machine guns, and airstrikes, a fortress of mud and steel. But unseen eyes watched. From a distance, the Azov Brigade observed, analyzing every movement. Small drones hovered overhead, mapping angles, entrances, and vulnerabilities. Forward scouts noted routines. When soldiers rested, resupplied, and faltered in vigilance, every detail became part of the plan, and by the time the attack began, the Ukrainians knew these trenches better than the men inside them. When the ambush struck, it was sudden and overwhelming. Smoke canisters blurred visibility, masking the approach of multiple assault squads. Gunfire erupted in sharp, precise bursts, echoing violently off the earthen walls. Grenades rolled into narrow dugouts, leaving no room for escape. From every flank, Ukrainian fighters advanced with calculated aggression, creating the illusion of unstoppable numbers. The Russian soldiers, once confident behind their defenses, were trapped. In the confined spaces, movement meant death. Climbing out exposed them to gunfire. Staying low invited grenades. Panic spread faster than bullets. Discipline disintegrated, leaving chaos in its wake. Screams, frantic shots, and desperate scrambling filled the trenches. What was meant to protect now became a coffin of mud and fear. Amid the confusion, Azov fighters advanced with precision. Teams provided suppressive fire, others hurled grenades into dugouts, and a third group moved behind enemy lines, cutting off escape routes. Every action was synchronized. Drones overhead relayed real-time data, ensuring that no Russian soldier could regroup or flee. The ambush was methodical, demonstrating that in modern warfare, knowledge and timing are just as lethal as weapons. This confrontation highlights a controversial truth. Traditional trench warfare is obsolete. In World War I, trenches allowed armies to hold ground for years, shielding soldiers from relentless artillery and waves of infantry. Even in World War II, trenches, bunkers, and minefields slowed offensives. Today, however, technology has changed everything. Precision munitions, aerial reconnaissance, and highly mobile units can expose and dismantle entrenched positions in minutes. The Azov Brigade exploited these vulnerabilities flawlessly. They didn't merely attack, they studied, mapped, and manipulated the battlefield. Walls that once promised protection became barriers to escape. Russian troops faced not only physical defeat but psychological collapse. Panic undermined morale more effectively than any bullet, leaving soldiers paralyzed in fear. Controversy arose among military analysts. Could this strategy be replicated elsewhere? Some argue that only a disciplined, highly trained force with access to drones and intelligence can achieve such precision. Others suggest this represents the future of combat: smaller, faster, smarter units, exploiting the weaknesses of larger, static forces. Regardless, the ambush served as a stark lesson in modern warfare. Fortifications are only as strong as the awareness defending them. A subhook emerges in the psychological element of the assault. The moment Russian soldiers realized there was no safe exit, the battle shifted from physical confrontation to a mental struggle. Fear became a weapon, eroding structure and cohesion faster than any tactical maneuver. In modern war, this intersection of intelligence, technology, and human psychology can decide outcomes before the first shot is fired. By the end of the ambush, the trench network was destroyed. Survivors fled, abandoning weapons and supplies. The Azov Brigade emerged victorious both tactically and psychologically. For Ukraine, this demonstrated that discipline, preparation, and innovation could overcome superior numbers. Each successful ambush became a symbol of resilience, broadcast across the country to inspire and unify. For Russia, the lesson was equally harsh. Trench lines, long considered invincible, proved vulnerable. State propaganda about invincibility collided with reality, exposing weaknesses that could no longer be ignored. What was once safety now became a glaring example of the dangers of underestimating modern tactics. Military planners worldwide took note. The ambush underscored that modern battlefields demand transparency, mobility, and speed. Static defenses are no longer sufficient. Technology, Drones, precision weaponry, and real-time intelligence can transform any fortification into a trap if the defenders fail to adapt. The ambush demonstrated that a smaller, well-coordinated force could dismantle a larger, entrenched one using strategy and timing alone. The battle also revealed the timeless human aspect of war. Beyond the drones and explosives, men fought for survival, gripped by fear and exhaustion. The screams in the trenches, the frantic attempts to escape, and the shock of sudden vulnerability serve as reminders that war tests not just weapons, but endurance, willpower, and resilience. This ambush will be remembered as a symbol of how warfare continues to evolve. Information is as decisive as firepower. Speed and adaptability outweigh raw numbers. What was once considered safe can collapse in moments. Soldiers who feel invincible one moment may be fighting for their lives the next. The story of this ambush also raises deeper questions about the ethics and psychological toll of modern warfare. Is technology transforming combat into a less personal but more destructive force? How do soldiers cope with the constant awareness that every move, every position, every weakness could be exploited? These are discussions that military experts and civilian observers alike are beginning to confront. In Ukraine today, positions are never secure. Ambushes like this demonstrate that flexibility, strategy, and intelligence can decisively overcome even the strongest fortifications. For the rest of the world, this battle is a lens into the future of combat, one where mobility, adaptability, and information are paramount. Ultimately, the conflict proves a timeless truth. Strength alone is not enough. Those who adapt fastest survive. A position thought unbreakable can fall in minutes. Human endurance is tested not just by weapons, but by fear, strategy, and timing. And in the evolving landscape of warfare, those lessons have never been clearer. As the ambush intensified, the chaos inside the Russian trenches reached a breaking point. What began as confusion quickly transformed into panic. Soldiers tried to regroup, but every maneuver was anticipated. The Azov Brigade's coordinated assault left no path for escape. From multiple angles, suppressive fire pinned the defenders, while grenades and precision shots rendered narrow dugouts uninhabitable. The very walls that were meant to provide protection now confined them, turning familiar terrain into a lethal trap. Psychological collapse accelerated faster than physical injuries. Men who had trained for battle were paralyzed by the realization that they were entirely exposed. Attempts to climb out or reposition were met with immediate, deadly resistance. Fear became a weapon itself, eroding discipline and leaving squads fragmented. Even seasoned officers struggled to maintain control, their commands drowned out by the cacophony of explosions and desperate shouts. The battlefield had shifted from a contest of firepower to a test of nerves. The ambush didn't merely defeat the Russian forces, it amplified their vulnerability. As panic spread, the Azov Brigade's advantage grew exponentially. Drones continued to relay real-time intelligence, guiding squads to weak points and unguarded exits. Each trench segment became a microcosm of chaos, a psychological labyrinth with no exit. Russian soldiers were forced into impossible decisions: fight in confined quarters, flee into open fields, or surrender under relentless fire. In this phase, the ambush revealed a fundamental truth about modern warfare. Technology and strategy can turn superior numbers into liabilities. The static defensive mindset of the Russian troops clashed violently with the dynamic and adaptive approach of the Ukrainians. Every tactic, every movement, every reaction was exploited. By exploiting routine and human behavior, the Azov Brigade magnified fear into paralysis, proving that in contemporary combat, the mind is as decisive as the body. After minutes that felt like hours, the battlefield fell silent. The Russian defensive network was in ruins. Trenches collapsed, supplies abandoned, and morale shattered. Survivors fled in disarray, leaving behind not only equipment, but a sense of invincibility that had been carefully constructed by propaganda. For the Azov Brigade, victory was total. They achieved tactical dominance and psychological supremacy in a single operation. The ambush sent a powerful message. For Ukraine, it became a symbol of resilience and the effectiveness of precision, intelligence-driven tactics. For Russia, it highlighted the fragility of even heavily fortified positions and the lethal consequences of underestimating adaptive, smaller forces. And for the wider world, it underscored that the future of warfare belongs to those who combine technology, strategy, and human psychology, where flexibility and information outweigh sheer numbers. This battle demonstrates that modern warfare war is no longer fought solely with weapons. It is fought with information, speed, and mental endurance. A position that appears impenetrable can collapse in moments. Soldiers who feel secure one instant may be fighting for survival the next. The Azov Brigade's ambush is a masterclass in 21st century tactics, showing that preparation, coordination, and adaptability are decisive. Support this channel to stay updated on the latest tactical analyses, battlefield insights, and stories that reveal the evolving realities of conflict worldwide. Every inch of land, every ambush, every decision matters. Understanding them is the key to seeing the full picture.